Welcome to CMX Connect London. We've just made a start, so if you're coming in to the chat, please do in the chat section say a little bit about who you are and where you're logging in from and what communities you manage. Today is a CMX Connect London virtual event, so we're online and welcome wherever you are in the world. So just so that you know, we usually ask people on the chat as they come in, please tell us your name and your community and where you're based. So you can be coming in and dropping those messages in for us. I'm joined today by Lauren Gross and Michelle Sims, who are a CMX London co-hosts with me, and I'm Serena Snowd. So welcome. Great, we'll move on.
Welcome, everyone. Just more people coming in now, so yeah.
Lovely. Great. Okay, so we're going to run through an intro just as we're getting in, and if you want to just drop a message in the chat and tell us your name and your community and where you're based, and I'll run through a little bit of an introduction if you're new to CMX or CMX Connect, so you can find out a little bit more. So it is a CMX Virtual Connect event. So generally we just ask during the breakout groups in particular, if you'd like to have your camera on, please do. That'd be really great for those small group discussions. Please close any distracting applications down. Use the chat box to ask questions or leave comments as you go, and we'll be keeping an eye on that as we go through the event. And yeah, grab a snack or a drink if you like to. It's a very casual event and it's a very friendly event. So hopefully you know that you're very, very welcome. CMX Connect is usually an in-person event series, but because of the pandemic, a lot of our events have been happening virtually. So they happen in various different cities and places around the world, including London. So you're joining a London event today. There are other different event chapters around the world, including Madrid and Mumbai and Lisbon and Sao Paulo and other brilliant places in the world. So if you're interested in joining a CMX Connect chapter near you, please do have a look on the site. You may very well find that there's a chapter nearby, or if you're near London, please feel free to join us. It's events.cmxhub.com. Okay, so the goals of the CMX Connect events. So Connect, the idea is you meet at least one awesome person and then to learn so that you get one actionable thing you can implement today within your team or within your community, and to advocate. The idea is that as an organization, CMX is really passionate about advocating for the community industry and in taking us forward as professionals. So today's topic is life after lockdown. And particularly we thought this would be helpful for those of us in the UK and also for those of you who might be joining us from other countries, so that we can talk a little bit about what is life after lockdown looking. Are you still in lockdown? Are you phasing out of restrictions after the COVID-19 pandemic? What does work look like for you? What does community building look like for you after the pandemic? So today that's really the focus. So a lot of what we're going to be doing is talking about our own experiences and also getting together in small groups and sharing our experiences and learning from each other. So I'm going to be stopping sharing the slides now and I'll come back and join you. Hello. I was doing that blind. Gotta love that. So it looks like we got a few different folks from different places. That's great. Lovely. Great. Okay. So what we thought we'd do next, just so everybody's aware. So the first kind of 10 minutes or so, we'll be sharing a little bit as CMX Connect hosts about our own challenges and experiences. So that will be us talking about how things have been for us in terms of our work location, things like, how things have been for our teams or for our kind of co-workers, and also how things have been for us with our community building, whether we're building community online or whether we're building community in person, or whether we're now suddenly building community online because we can't meet in person. So we'll be running through things, just giving you a taster of where we are as co-hosts. And then after that, roughly about 1:20, what we'll do is we'll jump into small breakout groups. And so what we'll then be doing is just checking in with each other, going around it and just talking about what life is like for us. What are the restrictions like in our own area if you're not in the UK? How are things for you? So we've got a few things we'll be kind of chatting through, and then we'll come back together and we'll just review what we talked about as a group so that everybody can get those kind of top line insights from each group. And then we'll tell you a little bit about what's coming up next. So that's what we're going to be doing. So let's go through and talk about life after lockdown. So co-host, would you like me to go first? Would that be helpful? And then we come to each of you in turn. Would that be useful?
Yeah, you can go and then
Great.
we'll follow.
Lovely. Okay, so we'll go in the order that we can see on the screen. So I'll share a few thoughts, and then Lauren will come in, and then Michelle will come in too. But yeah, please do, as we go along, if you've got any comments or any questions, please do add those in the chat. We are keeping an eye on everything. Lovely. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. So for those of you who don't know me, I oversee a peer support health community. So I work for a health organisation in the UK that's called Alzheimer's Society. And we have a peer support community called Talking Point, and that's there for people affected by dementia. And so I have 3 teams that run that community, and I oversee the community and those teams. So how have things been for us? So let's start with how things are on the community itself. So there's been no real change to our community building on Talking Point because we're an online community. And I think in a way that's been really helpful for us as a team, because it's meant that we haven't pivoted too much in terms of our community operation. So the actual kind of method of delivering the community hasn't changed. And actually, we did see a surge of community members come in during that first lockdown in March 2020, which was an experience, as I've talked at previous CMX events about. But definitely on the community, we've noticed a real change to the levels of confidence and of certainty that the community feel. We feel that people affected by dementia and other health conditions, actually, there's a lot of nervousness and there's a lot of concern about going back to normal too soon and what impacts that might have with people with various different health conditions. So that's something I think we all need to be mindful of if we're supporting people with different health conditions in our own organisations. So for us, we've really stepped up giving support and information to help people navigate those changes, particularly in local support where some group services still aren't returning yet, some in-person services still might be coming later. Same with any kind of medical support where there might be delays to operations or appointments. So something, again, to be mindful of. So for the team, so we, because we went suddenly remote back in February or March 2020 for the first time, I've been running weekly gather round events. So there's a product called Gather Round, which I absolutely love. Talk to me about it and I'll tell you how great it is. So I run those weekly, and that's so that the team get time together. So my staff team get time together to build relationships. I can boost morale, particularly during the time when we've been working around the clock and it's been quite stressful. So that's been great. And then other things we've done, we used to meet in person twice a year as a larger team, the volunteers and the staff. And of course, with the pandemic, that's not been possible. So I've brought in online events every couple of months just to keep us connected and informed. And something we're also mindful of, if you're thinking about planning in person, do check in with the people that you're planning with, because our volunteers are quite nervous about travel, rightly so, I think, given how uncertain things are at the moment. So we're actually postponing our first in-person event until 2022. So that's something, again, if you're thinking with your planning head on. Just finally, working. So going suddenly remote back in March 2020 for me was a real gear change, because I was working a couple of days from home, but mostly in our London office. So just trying to phase back into thinking about returning to the office at some point. My organisation, like many others, is thinking about a phased or trial period for getting people back into the office. So we're looking at that as a team at the moment, and what's that going to look like. Is there an expectation in organizations to return to offices full time, or are we looking at maybe like a hybrid model where, you know, part of the time in the office and part of the time working from home? So we're still working that out as an organisation. So we're going to be piloting a few things over the next few months, and we're hearing similar things in the not-for-profit sector. And I've heard of some organisations that have reduced their offices right down. So I'm wondering whether maybe other people have seen that happen too. Yeah, and I think just thinking if that is the case, and that is the case for Alzheimer's Society, where people might have pivoted to home working, and if you've seen that in your organisation, perhaps there's a greater need for internal community building. So perhaps as community professionals, there's an opportunity for us there to be sharing our knowledge and expertise. So that's just a few minutes from me, a whistle stop tour. So I'll pass over to Lauren now, who will share her insights with us.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you today. And thanks so much, Sharina. That is super interesting. And I even took my own notes about some of the things you mentioned, including Gather Around, which I want to hear more about. So I run a B2B online community platform called the Mesa, and it's specifically focused on social impact actors, bringing them together with the goal of especially those philanthropists out there, the people who are inheriting a significant amount of money or looking to make change makers ultimately, although I have mixed feelings about using that word. But the goal here is to enable them to mobilize more resources for good. So their time, their talent, their treasure, their ties and their testimonies, their testimonials, and how can community building enable people to feel confident and secure in their giving so that they really give more? That's the goal. And we're an early stage startup. So we started really piloting our work last year, and we launched officially this past February. So we launched in COVID. Thank you. We launched during COVID, and a lot of our early work was really focused on making sure that the online supports the offline. And because we're big believers that one can't necessarily fully replace the other, especially in a space like encouraging people to give money. But of course, during COVID, that offline piece wasn't available to people. So navigating that and understanding that was really critical for this past year. However, now as we kind of begin to think about those loosening restrictions in London and the UK and beyond, because a lot of these are global or are locally focused in other regions of the world, how can a platform like this really support and not supplant that offline experience? So we're continuing to navigate that in the technology, along with helping communities grow and thrive in a way that they feel comfortable and encouraging their members to engage how fits best for them. So we're all having those conversations and continuing to do a pulse check on how to do them better and ensure everyone's comfort levels are met as much as possible. Our team is, it's a little bit different because the Mesa was incubated out of another company. So we're really small and really close. And so we really do value as an organization those impersonal interactions. And I personally, I'll speak for myself, I have a hard time. I enjoy working from home and I feel it's comfortable, but I need to get into a space with other minds working and energy and just get out of my own head for a few minutes. So I do think there's value in that. We currently, and even previously to COVID, we actually met for breakfast every week, which I loved. Now we have online meetings and we talk through our agendas for the weeks, our calendars, and our projects. And we have monthly socials, sometimes bi-monthly. I don't see that changing. It might, as people feel more comfortable, become in person, but there's definitely varying levels of comfort on the team. And just on that note, and this might be applicable for others, we got rid of our office, our co-working space, but we had an office in that space last year. And we're planning on revisiting it. And I'm not sure if others have went through, I'm happy to discuss this further with you, but we had we must have went to 10 different facilities to check them out. And we were all ready to share them with the team. We shared them, the top choices, and the team was like, we're just not ready. We're like, maybe this is something to revisit in a few months, but we're not there. The whole team's not vaccinated. And so that was kind of a reality check for us and made us rethink about that. It's worth mentioning that I sit with a few consultants on our team, but we are growing. We're adding 6 new members come September. So we're growing 600%. I don't know. Math's not my forte, but we're growing a lot. And so I would love to hear from others about how you navigate bringing on new staff, especially a lot more staff for an organization of our size in during COVID times. And I think that's it from me. I'm happy to share more during the breakout sessions if anyone's curious. Michelle, I'll pass it over to you.
Cool. Yeah, that's amazing growth. We're in a very similar spot as well. But yeah, I'm Michelle, for anyone that doesn't know, and I look after the million-person Finimize community. I don't know if anyone knows Finimize. It's all about helping people to invest. So during lockdown, like that was a huge thing. You know, people were talking about crypto at the pub or at the dinner table and starting to invest in lockdown. So for us, we had a massive growth during lockdown, which is great. But our community has been really virtual for the most part. So there's not too much difference. Same with Serena, we're still going to be an online community. My job is to really help those super users of us, of Finimize. So yeah, I run the Finimize Global Events Program. We run about 20 virtual events every month. So it is a massive thing for us. And it's probably, you know, other than reading our Finimize newsletter, other than looking at our app and using our app to learn about investing, events are way where people can connect and connect and feel I guess a bigger part of our community. So it is a huge part, and virtual for us is still going to be a massive thing. But you know, over the next couple of months, I'm going to be looking at how can we, you know, build a global hybrid event plan that can really scale. So it's a global community that I look after as well. So I'm going to be dealing with a lot of different, you know, safety and COVID challenges in each different region. I guess the benefit of having your super users volunteer and run these events is, you know, I'm going to be using and picking their brains throughout building this plan. But yeah, I've already started testing formats and also obviously running CMX Connect events as well. I'm going to be using our events as part of my tests as well. So in terms of community for Finimize, yeah, nothing really changes, but on the events side, I'm really starting to look at how can we build a hybrid model in the future. And then in terms of team for Finimize, as I said, so the pandemic really accelerated the growth and the interest in investing. So yeah, we've actually achieved during the pandemic, we've probably achieved more than what we actually did before, with probably less resources as well. So not that I'm going to use this as a plug, but we are hiring for someone to join our Finimize team. And yeah, looking forward to that kind of next stage of our team. And then working wise, so the same as Lauren, you know, a tech startup. We were at a co-working space, but we're not going to be going back to the office anytime soon. We do have monthly check-ins with our CEO, where, you know, we can actually say to him face to face, or, you know, vote on a poll how we're feeling in terms of being at home versus wanting to go to the office. And I think, you know, most people are really enjoying being at home, especially now that it's a choice versus when it was during a pandemic and, you know, you couldn't leave your living room or anything like that. So yeah, we're going to be staying at home for now. But again, socials and a yearly catch up is something we're going to be talking about too, because a lot of our team has gone remote and gone to different countries, and we're also hiring in different countries. So there's going to be a need for something maybe in a different country where we can meet up annually and see everyone. But yeah, that is my update. I can definitely talk more about those details if anyone has any more questions. Cool.
Thanks, Michelle. Sorry, my mute button was stuck then. So I'm thinking, I want to say things, but I can't. Anyway, I could, but you know, any mime. But yeah, so thank you. Yeah, I think some really interesting insights, even though we work in slightly different industries, do slightly different things. I hear a lot of parallels from what each of us have said around how things have been in terms of home, or maybe for our teams and for community building, or what we're thinking about for the future. So we've been keeping an eye on the chat, and I think we're seeing, you know, people talking about, you know, wanting to communicate with colleagues in different countries, and what does that look like, and then people talking about, you know, the challenge to restore and recreate a good experience for customers, you know, whichever stage we're at with this pandemic. And I think with various different variants coming, and with different kind of changes in the R rate, as they refer to it, in terms of the level of the news, whether we like it or not, really, aren't we, in terms of what we're doing next. So just I'm mindful of we have. So at this stage, we're going to be heading into kind of breakout, or do we? What do?
Oh, you're just breaking up a little bit, Serena, but I am going to look at creating rooms.
Did she mention? I'm thinking maybe she, because of the. I'm thinking maybe she mentioned because of the size, using your rooms, or just talking all together. I couldn't hear her exactly though. Let's see.
We could do, yeah. Let's just did.
We tried to understand, but I'm not sure we did a job.
We've each had different internet issues, I think. So this is like January. For those of you who were with us through January, where we had a panelist disappear during a resilience talk, which gave me an opportunity to demonstrate resilience. So what do we think about the breakouts, just to check back in?
We could do 2 rooms.
I think so. Yeah, great. Oh, thank you for joining us. Yeah, I think somebody's got to jump off at 1:30. That's totally fine. Let's do 2 breakout rooms then, and we'll be back soon. Welcome back, everybody. So we had a couple of breakout sessions where we were digging deep into where is everybody with community building. What are your challenges that you're facing at the moment? What are you thinking through? So shall we run through some of our kind of top line insights from the groups? I'll hand over. How about we start with you, Michelle, and then I'll step in after Lauren.
Great. Yeah, I mean, we had a bit of a mixed group because my navigating of the breakout rooms, but so we had Georgia, Patricia, and for the last event I had Cassie as well. Oh, Kashi. But yeah, I think overall, you know, COVID has definitely been tough for everyone involved. But, you know, in terms of London, like there's opportunities to do hybrid. And I think Georgia's, you know, she said she was, you know, being able to take advantage of the opportunity to go back to the office whenever she wanted. And I think, you know, if companies are offering that, it's going to be a great result, because your team can work flexibly to whatever they need as well. So I think that was a good challenge to point out, and a good, you know, silver lining of what's happened. Some of the challenges, I guess, from Cassie, in the last discussion, we mentioned for community members, onboarding new community members or onboarding new team members during after lockdown, or even before lockdown. There's been some challenges in getting genuine, community members or genuine applications involved. Also, I guess workflow as well. It's, if everyone's working remotely, what is being able to learn from senior leaders or other team members on how they work well. I think there can be communication breakdowns when you're doing things remotely. And then the final thing which I've also noticed is, and we've had new members or new employees come and go during lockdown, but the one thing that I've noticed as well is the culture. People, are less, I guess, integrated into the culture and the lifestyle, I guess, of the brand compared to people that have joined the team before lockdown or I guess now. So yeah, I think those were some interesting points that Kashi had. And then I think Patricia, she pointed out about her talent community that she's running. One of the whole purpose of the community is for them to go and get jobs through that. And during lockdown, there hasn't been as many opportunities. So people weren't able to get what they needed out of certain communities. So, I think that's a huge challenge. If your community is based around something like an offline event, I was hosting, regular monthly offline events for my female investor community. And I saw a huge difference in the people that were, attending virtual events versus offline events. So yeah, I think people get different things from communities. And I think we're going to see, an influx of new people coming to certain communities because of the change in strategy and the change in offering. So yeah, I think that was a little summary of what we got through. Cool, I'll throw it over to you, Lauren.
Yeah, I think jumping from that last insight resonates because that came up for us as well around this idea that different people are looking for different things from communities, and the idea of, can a community be everything? Should it just be one aspect of that? How do you meet people's different needs in those communities? So it sounds like that is a issue or a complexity that everyone on this call is kind of trying to address. A couple other things that came up: finding good tech partners who help you build the platforms or products that you're trying to build, or the right platforms. If you don't have an intermediary tech partner, that's hard work, especially if you're non-technical and you're trying to kind of navigate that. So that came up as well as one of the challenges that Georgia actually mentioned and is working through. Two other things that I thought were worth just sharing back: the idea of a community versus going directly to a host or the person who runs that community. So the idea that you go to the community for support and a help forum potentially have other people feeding into that from the community, versus always going back to your community host and asking them the questions. Building up that resourcefulness within the community instead of always going back is definitely something I can speak, I feel and know. And it sounds like both, all of our group felt that. And the last thing is just migrating from one platform or technology to another. And I see Serena nodding, and I know from our conversation that Serena's experienced this. It's hard. Change management is incredibly hard. I think we could have a whole discussion on how to do that well. And so that's definitely something that came up. And Serena and I were together in our last group, so I'll let her take the final few minutes with some of her takeaways.
Thanks, Lauren. Yeah, I'm nodding away on that migration one. it's literally like moving house. So when you think about the stress and joy that comes with moving house, that is literally what you're doing with a community. So it's that idea of you're establishing new norms, you're introducing people to new navigation, you're trying to get people to actually like the thing. You've got that first kind of few months of, do we even like this? And then you get really used to it, and it's like wallpaper basically. So it's that whole process and the change management transition. So for us, a few different things. Had 2 breakout sessions I was part of. One I noticed, and I wonder how much of a trend there is for this. We've got a couple of folks here with us today who are new to community building. So this wasn't necessarily, it's not been something they've been doing for very long. And one person who transitioned out of one industry into community building. So I'm wondering how many people potentially may be finding their way in this industry in the middle of a pandemic, which I imagine is probably quite tricky. Top tip: join CMX Connect. So there we are, a little plug for you. Try and find a CMX near you. So that's my top tip on that. But just thinking about people who are new to community building, particularly if you're building early stage communities. Thinking about things like, how do you seed engagement? How do you seed content? How do you build engagement from that? How do you get people returning to the community? How do you get people using the community in the way you want them to? How do you encourage people to talk to each other? So a lot of those questions were coming up. Some of the resources we were highlighting were some of the practical insights out there from CMX and from feverbee.com as well, Rich Millington, and also our April CMX London event on taking your engagement to the next level. So that was another CMX London. I'm doing well, aren't I, on the plugs? So just thinking through things like, how do you do community when you're online? Do you have colleagues everywhere in different places, and what does that kind of culture look like? We talked a little bit about that, and like what Michelle was saying earlier, it's tricky, that whole kind of building online and culture piece. So those are the big insights for us. So I'm wondering, whether maybe we're thinking about potential topics for events in the future, and if you have any ideas for CMX London events in the future, please let us know. Whether we need to maybe have a Help, I'm a New Community Manager event, and try and bring together some insights and answer some of those questions. So that's me in terms of rounding up. So what I think we'll do now, we've got a couple of minutes left, so we're just going to be doing a little bit of a wrap up and talking about what we've got planned next. So I will hand over to Michelle to talk us through a couple of things.
Great, thanks, Serena. I've just posted some resources in the chat, and please join the Slack group so we can bother you on Slack as well. And also, based on feedback as well, there's going to be a feedback form that goes out after the end of this. So let us know if there's suggestions on topics and things like that. Should I share the summit slide? Yeah, okay, we'll do that. There we go. There we go. Hopefully you can see that in a second. But so I don't know if you've heard or you've seen the emails, but CMX is going to have a summit at the end of August, and it's called the Rise Summit. We had one earlier this year, was more focused around Europe and UK speakers. So this is a global one, but you can check out the lineup. It's going to be great. It's really good for, any level of community manager. If you're new to community, definitely go to that. But we're going to be doing as well an offline event alongside that. So you can watch, most likely we're still in planning stage, but we'll be watching a session together and broadcasting live to the actual summit. So we'll have more details about that, but we will share the link to the summit in the chat. But what to expect, so 1 workshop day and 2 conference days, and it's entirely free. So there's no expense to you or your company. And that's what's good about virtual events as well. Mostly they're free. But there'll be lots of, resources that you can use to level up your career. And yeah, there's a lot of talks. Usually there's a report that David Spinks, the founder of CMX, will go through, talking about, what's currently happening in the industry and what is there to look forward to in the future. But most importantly, you can connect with a lot of community professionals. And yeah, I think that is worth it in the end. Even if you forget to go to sessions, go to the networking sessions and make sure you connect with a community professional. But yeah, there'll be more details about the upcoming CMX London event, and you'll see that in your inbox probably in the next week. So keep an eye on that. Great. Yeah, any follow-up, Serena, Lauren?
That's it, I think. Thanks so much to those of you who joined us. Yeah, we'll be scoping out when we return to in-person, and I think, yeah, CMX Summit Rise will be a really great opportunity if we can. So please, watch this space. Thank you very much.
Thank you.